Hello class, so we've made a nice little tree using Illustrator. Use from steps from creating leaves to creating the shape of the top of the tree to creating the right textures to creating the trunk and combining it all together with a couple options here. I'm going to go back to my original tree here. I'm going to show you how to use it in the file, which is really just a copy and paste to a certain degree, but there's some, I purposely set this tree up so there's a couple simple tricks to be able to get this to function in a lot of different settings. So I'm going to show you those, and I'll show you various tricks. So from how to make it look more dense to how to change the color of the tree to how to change the shape, so that you can really create an infinite variety of trees from this. So I'm going to select all of this. It's really two groups, which is the leaves and the trunk. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come over to the file I want to use it in, which is this one. I've turned off the trees. So this is sort of my first take at it, sort of the final trees there. I'm going to sort of replicate that right now. So I'm just going to do it on a new layer. I'll call it another tree, layer 5, because I beginning of this video showed various options. You can call it whatever the heck you want for that layer. And I'm just going to paste this in with Control V or Edit Paste, and it comes in. And this tree happens to be a pretty good size now for this drawing because that's what I based it off of. But really, you could scale it quite easily. I'm just going to copy this whole tree over to the other side. Again, I like to have trees popping off the side of my drawing. That makes it look a little bit more realistic. So I'm going to copy it and do the same thing over to this side. And of course, that's an identical tree, but as soon as I scale this up here, and I'm going to make this one pop off the top. When I scale up, just by changing the scale just like that, it's automatically redone the randomness of the leaves, and so it already begins to look like sort of a second tree already. And I had three, oops, I didn't mean to move that. I was trying to select it. I had 3 trees so in this example, so I put another small one here. And I'll just scale this down. There. So again, the shape of it is automatically changing, and I'll just put a small one here. Now if you still want to change the shape, maybe you want it about the same size, but you want to change the shape a little bit, again, remember, you can go and I can select the top part of the leaf. The shape of those leaves are controlled by the mask, so I can also come over to my transparency. I can select on my mask, select this shape, and just tweak it up like that. It'll automatically sort of, again, re-randomize that or add a line or whatever I want to do. If the sort of just original scale didn't work, you can continue to play with this line work to get the shape that you actually want. When you're done, don't forget to go back out to the main drawing file. Now, one of the things I should point out that might happen as you're doing this is this actually sort of worked the way I've done it, but let me see. I'm going to pull this off to the side, and I'm just going to, oops, I meant to copy that. Let me undo here. Okay. What happens if you have this tree and you come out, and sometimes if you move this just right, depending on where it is, you catch the edge of the pattern that you did here, and I know I can catch it somewhere. I usually find a much easier time of catching it than I am here. I don't know what I copied there, just a little bit of the background there. There we go. So see how what's happening here? I've got a dark spot with a white spot here. That's because this background texture is repeating itself. And so I reached the top of my original texture, and now it's repeating the bottom, which I specifically had darker. That's not right, but it's easy to fix. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stay with my black arrow. I'm going to have to hold the tilde key down on my keyboard, which is under escape. It's a little squiggly line, and that's not going to move it. It's going to move the texture. So we can see as I hold the tilde down, I have it continually push. I can change the texture to put the light part at the top, and the dark part is coming down to the bottom. So the way that mine happened to work out, I didn't need that, but quite often when I use this tree, that happens. Again, it's tilde and the black arrow to move the texture around to get it to the right part of the tree. So that was just a demonstration in case that happens there. So I want to continue with how you might use this. Right now these trees are all the same color. These two trees, they don't matter much because they're sort of far apart, but these two trees, they sort of run into each other and you can't tell them apart. And so I can change the color of that to sort of get definition of those two trees separately, which could be nice. Alternatively, it's the same thing you can do if you don't want the tree to be completely green. all the time. It doesn't have to be, some trees aren't. So I'm going to select just the top part of this tree, and I'm going to go to my appearances, and I'm going to go to fill, and I'm just going to duplicate my fill. Of course, it's not going to look the same because it's identical to it. So what I am going to do is I'm going to come up and maybe make it a pink or red. Of course, now I've literally made that same shape pink or red. But what I'll do is maybe I'll down this arrow, and I'll change the opacity maybe a little bit down, and maybe I'll try to set one of these blending modes. I'm not sure which one. Darken sort of makes it dark. If that's not a bad color. Multiply is gonna, that's not bad. A little more maroony. I think that could actually be a true leaf color. So I'm gonna keep it on that. You can play with the colors. You know, as I've mentioned before, playing with colors can take quite a long time. So just for the sake of video, I'm going to move forward. The reality is you don't have to use pink to get a red tree. You could use a different color, green. Maybe you could apply yellow to it to brighten it up a little bit. You can make it a fall color. So you really have lots of flexibility. But in this case, it allows this tree to sort of define itself away from that tree and sit on top of it. And I might even make the decision, now that I can really read it, to sort of move this one over and let these two trees interact a little bit more in depth. The other thing you can do is, that's pretty easy, this tree as I developed it actually works really well especially for trees in front of the building, because there's enough holes in it, especially at this bigger scale, to see through it. So I'll use it in Photoshop and all these things to use this really cool tree, and you don't even notice it. You think it really works well. But in this drawing, and it might work well for an Illustrator drawing just as is, but in this drawing I feel it's not quite dense enough. I want to make these trees a little denser, and there's an easy trick that I can do to do that too. All I'm going to do is I'll start with this big one over here. I'm just going to select that guy. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste in place, which is going to paste it right on top of itself. It's Control F, but just to show you, some people don't know this is a good trick, paste in place. I was going to paste it on top of itself. Of course, nothing looked like it happened there because it's identical. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change its shape a little bit, and I'm just going to move it out of place a little bit just to fill in. And if I want to, again, maybe make it more denser, I can change the shape or play with it and just move it a little bit. Now that tree is more denser. Now it's sitting on top of this red tree, which I don't want it to do, so I'm just going to have to select it and say transform, arrange, send to back, and it's going to put it to the back of the file to make it more dense. This red tree I think is fine in its density, although I could copy it and paste it over itself that way, but this one I think is a little light, so I'm going to, again, Control C for copy. I'm going to go Control F for paste in place. I'm going to just change the shape of that tree a little bit, and all of a sudden it sort of redoes the pattern. Maybe just move it a little bit like that, and it really sort of gives it a nice looking quality. And there you go. Those are those Illustrator trees. Again, a lot of steps, but the nice thing is, once you do this tree once, you can use it so many times. I think it works for a lot of different drawings, so it's worth the time investment to have this to use many times. Alright, you can continue to watch the various videos on other things I did, and good luck.